That night, I stood clutching the mop in my son's marble-clad kitchen, the bleach fumes so thick they scorched my throat. My daughter-in-law said I needed to earn my keep and tossed me a white apron. I didn't argue. I smiled. Because with just one signature at the right moment, their entire house of borrowed cards would collapse. My name is Eleanor Hart, and at 62, I never imagined I'd be standing in my son's dining room while he and his wife explained why I needed to become their maid. The dinner had started with imported wine and catered salmon, Vanessa's newest obsession from some celebrity chef downtown. She wore a diamond necklace that caught the light every time she gestured, which was often. The stones threw tiny rainbows across the cream walls of their Northcrest Heights home, the kind of house that cost more than most people see in a lifetime. "Mother Hart," Vanessa began, dabbing her eyes with a linen napkin, though no tears had fallen. "Daniel and I have been discussing the situation." My son shifted in his chair, the leather creaking under his weight. At 34, Daniel had my late husband's jaw, but none of his spine. He stared at his plate while his wife performed. "What situation?" I asked, setting down my fork. The salmon had gone cold anyway. Vanessa's hand fluttered to her throat, fingers tracing the diamond choker. "The financial burden, of course. Having you in the guest house, the utilities, the maintenance. It's simply unsustainable. I'd been living in their guest house for 6 months, ever since I sold my condo to help them with the down payment on this monument to their ambitions." That detail seemed to have slipped their minds. "We've found a solution?" Daniel finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "A way for everyone to contribute." Vanessa stood, her heels clicking against the marble floor as she walked to the kitchen island. She returned with a white apron and a typed schedule. The paper made a crisp sound as she placed it before me. "Light housekeeping," she said, as if discussing the weather. "Meal preparation, laundry, basic maintenance. Consider it. Earning your keep." I read the schedule. 6 days a week. 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Duties included scrubbing bathrooms, washing their cars, preparing 3 meals daily, and additional tasks as needed. "You want me to be your maid?" I said. Not a question. "Such an ugly word." Vanessa laughed, the sound like glass breaking. "Think of it as contributing to the household. After all, we can't afford to keep supporting you otherwise." Supporting me? The woman wearing $40,000 around her neck was concerned about supporting me. Daniel cleared his throat. "Mum, it's temporary. Just until things stabilize with the Aurora Row project." The Aurora Row project. Another one of Vanessa's family ventures through Cole Urban Group, where Daniel now worked after leaving his engineering firm. He'd been so proud when they offered him the position, never questioning why they'd suddenly needed him after years of barely acknowledging his existence. "And if I refuse?" I asked. Vanessa's smile sharpened. "Then I'm afraid we'll need to ask you to vacate the guest house by month's end. Daniel, tell her about the zoning situation." My son's shoulders hunched. The guest house is... Technically, it's classified as a luxury suite now. For tax purposes. If family isn't contributing to household operations, we can't justify non-rental occupation. Household operations. They'd rehearsed this. I folded the schedule carefully, creasing each fold with precision. The paper felt expensive, probably from Vanessa's personal stationery collection. Even my humiliation had to have the right aesthetic. "When would you like me to start?" I asked. Vanessa clapped her hands together, diamonds catching the light again. Oh, wonderful. Tomorrow morning would be perfect. I have the women's auxiliary brunch, and everything needs to be spotless. She retrieved a digital timer from a drawer, the kind used in professional kitchens. For tracking your hours, we want to be fair about breaks. Fair. The word sat in my stomach like a stone. Daniel finally met my eyes. Mum, this is best for everyone. You'll have purpose, routine. It's not healthy. You sitting in that guest house all day. I'd been sitting in that guest house reviewing my old contracts. Actually, particularly the ones from my days at Helix Meridian Builders. But they didn't need to know that. Of course, I said, accepting the timer. It was heavier than expected. Industrial grade. I understand completely. Vanessa's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned, then quickly tucked it away. Marvelous. Oh, and Eleanor. We'll need you to use the service entrance from now on, and meals should be taken in the laundry room. We're having investors over frequently, and appearances matter. The laundry room, where they kept the cat's litter box. Whatever you think is best, I said, standing. My knees didn't shake. My voice didn't waver. 30 years of surviving corporate politics had taught me that the best revenge is served with perfect documentation. One question, I added, pausing at the door. The Aurora Row project that's being funded through the Cole Urban Group's primary portfolio, isn't it? The one with the Helix Meridian subdivision. Vanessa's smile flickered. I don't see how that's relevant to your housekeeping duties. Just curious, I said. I'll see myself out. Through the service entrance. Of course. As I walked through their marble foyer for what might be the last time as a guest. I heard Vanessa whisper to Daniel. See, I told you she'd accept it. People like her always do. People like her. Tomorrow. I would put on that apron. I would scrub their floors and wash their clothes. I would become invisible in my own son's home. But tonight, I would make a call to Grant Whitaker, the forensic accountant who'd helped me understand exactly what my signature on a certain document could mean. Vanessa was right about one thing. People like her always do accept it. Right up until they don't. The guest house was cold that night, but I didn't turn on the heat. Instead, I pulled out the banker's box I'd kept hidden behind winter coats that would never be worn in Marigold Ridge's mild climate. Inside lay 23 years of my life at Helix Meridian Builders. I'd started there as a bookkeeping clerk, working nights while Daniel was in elementary school. My husband Tom had just been diagnosed with cancer, and the medical bills were drowning us. Mr. Richardson, who owned Helix then, had taken a chance on a desperate woman with accounting certificates from community college. By the time Tom passed, I'd worked my way up to internal controller. I knew every contract, every vendor payment, every delayed invoice. When the 2008 crisis hit, I watched construction companies fall like dominoes. Helix was bleeding money, 3 projects stalled, 2 major clients bankrupt, credit lines maxed. The morning Mr. Richardson called the emergency meeting. His hands shook as he spread the financials across the conference table. We needed $75,000 by Friday, or the bank would foreclose. The other executives sat silent, already mentally updating their resumes. I have 75,000, I'd said. The room turned to stare. It was my entire life, savings, Tom's life insurance, our retirement fund, Everything I'd scraped together, working double shifts. Eleanor. No, Richardson had whispered. I can't ask you. You're not asking. I'm offering. But I want 30% preferred equity and a protection clause. The lawyers drew it up that night. In exchange for my bridge loan, I received preferred shares with a special provision if anyone ever attempted to pledge my shares or any derivative assets as collateral without my written consent. I could trigger an immediate buyback at market value, nullifying any encumbrance. The lawyers called it a nuclear option, designed to prevent hostile takeover attempts. Richardson paid me back within 18 months, but the shares remained mine. Helix recovered, thrived even. When Richardson retired in 2018, Cole Urban Group acquired Helix for $12 million. They kept the name for the subdivision work. Helix Meridian had good brand recognition in commercial development. I'd been at the signing. Vanessa's father, Marcus Cole, had barely glanced at the transfer documents. Why would he? It was just another acquisition, another absorbed company. The preferred shares converted in the merger, but the protection clause buried in subsection 12 of the appendix transferred intact. That was 5 years ago, 2 years before Daniel met Vanessa at a construction industry gala, 1 year before their whirlwind wedding at the Cole estate. I pulled out the original contract, running my fingers across the raised seal. Below it, the merger documents, where a junior associate had helpfully highlighted that all existing shareholder agreements remain in force except as explicitly modified herein. Nothing had been modified. My phone buzzed. Lila Monroe, my oldest friend from Helix, now enjoying retirement as a part-time library archivist. Eleanor, you sound troubled in your voicemail. Should I be worried? Not worried, I said, listening to the sound of laughter from the main house. Vanessa was entertaining again. Curious, though. How hard would it be to pull corporate filings for Cole Urban Group's recent financing arrangements? Lila paused. Public records. Not hard at all. UCC filings are searchable online. Why? Call it a hunch. I heard they're leveraging everything for the Aurora Row project. Everything? Lila's voice sharpened. She'd seen too many over-leveraged companies collapse. Including subsidiary assets? That's what I'm wondering. Give me 2 days. I'll pull everything SEC equivalents, state filings, UCC records. Eleanor, are you in trouble? Through the window, I watched Vanessa directing Daniel to move patio furniture. He struggled with a heavy planter while she pointed and critiqued. No, I said. But someone might be. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and searched for Grant Whitaker. He'd left corporate investigation to start his own forensic accounting firm. His website was simple: professional, financial intelligence for legal compliance. I drafted an email carefully. Mr. Whitaker, I require a consultation regarding the execution of shareholder rights in a merged entity. The matter involves preferred equity protection clauses and their impact on current collateralization agreements. I can provide documentation showing standing and legal interest. Time is of the essence. Eleanor Hart. His response came within an hour. Mrs. Hart, I can meet Thursday at 10 a.m. Please bring all original documents. My initial review suggests your matter may have significant implications. G. Whitaker. Thursday. 3 days of playing Maid first. I closed the laptop and looked at the apron Vanessa had given me. White, pristine, with staff embroidered in small letters on the pocket. She'd had it ready. This had been planned for weeks, maybe months. I thought about Daniel at 8 years old, crying because kids at school said we were poor. At 15, working weekends to save for college. At 22, calling to say he'd gotten the engineering job, that he'd make enough to take care of me someday. Somewhere between then and now, my son had disappeared into someone I didn't recognize. But the paper trail didn't lie. Cole Urban Group had been borrowing aggressively, using every asset as collateral. If they'd included Helix Meridian assets, and why wouldn't they? It was all theirs now. Then my protection clause was live. One signature from me, and their entire house of cards would face a margin call that would cascade through every credit line they'd established. I folded the apron carefully and set my alarm for 6:30. Let them think they'd won. Let Vanessa parade me in front of her friends. Let Daniel convince himself this was for everyone's benefit. In 3 days, I would know exactly what weapons I held, and unlike them, I knew how to wait. The timer started at 7 sharp. Vanessa stood in the kitchen, manicured nail tapping it dramatically. Every minute counts. Eleanor, efficiency is everything. She'd left a list, 3 pages, single-spaced, Polish silver that hadn't been touched in months, iron sheets for guests who weren't coming, scrub grout with a toothbrush in bathrooms that already gleamed. Questions? She asked, already turning away. No, ma'am. The word made her pause. Smile. Oh, that's not necessary. Just Vanessa is fine. But we both knew she loved it. By 8:15, my knees ached from scrubbing the guest bathroom floor. The chemical smell made my eyes water. Through the floor vent, I heard Vanessa on the phone. No, Miranda. She's actually grateful for the structure. Some people just need to be useful. You know, I wrung the mop, watching dirty water swirl down the drain. Useful. At lunch, a sandwich eaten standing in the laundry room, Daniel came home. He found me folding his shirts, the ones from the Italian tailor Vanessa insisted he use. Mum, He stopped, staring at the apron. The timer clipped to my pocket. This is temporary. Of course it is. I aligned his cuffs perfectly. How's the Aurora Row project? Fine. Great. We're just waiting on the final financing approval. He picked up a shirt, set it down. Vanessa's father is handling the banking relationships. Marcus always was good with banks, I said, even back when he was circling Helix like a vulture. Daniel's jaw tightened. He saved Helix. That company was drowning. Is that what he told you? I moved to the towels, folding them into precise thirds. Helix was debt-free when he bought it. We'd recovered completely. That's not... His phone buzzed. Vanessa, asking where he was. I have to go. Daniel? I didn't look up from the towels. Do you know what collateral the banks required for Aurora Row? Why would you ask that? Just curious. I still read the business pages. He left without answering. At 3 p., while vacuuming the library, I found the papers, not hidden, just carelessly tossed on Marcus Cole's desk during his last visit. A term sheet from Midwest Capital Trust. $12 million revolving credit facility. Collateral. All assets of Cole Urban Group and subsidiaries, including but not limited to Helix Meridian Builders Division. There it was. I photographed every page. Vanessa burst in at 4:20. Eleanor, I need the silver polished again. The Weatherbees are coming for cocktails. The silver I'd polished that morning. Of course. She watched me work for a moment. You know, you're taking this so well. I told Daniel you'd be difficult. But look at you. Adapting. I buffed a serving spoon to mirror brightness. We all have our roles to play. Exactly. She clapped her hands. Oh, I need you to stay late tonight. Maybe until 10. The Weatherbees sometimes linger. The timer showed I'd already worked 9 hours. Of course. That evening, while serving canapes to the Weatherbees, I heard Marcus Cole's name. Mrs. Weatherby's husband worked at Midwest Capital. Marcus's leverage to his eyeballs. Mr. Weatherby said, not noticing me refilling his scotch. Using everything for that Aurora Row project, even that old construction subsidiary. Helix. Vanessa laughed nervously. That's just a name now. Fully integrated assets. Better hope nothing goes sideways. Weatherby continued. One covenant breach, and the whole thing unwinds. Cross-default clauses are brutal these days. Vanessa's smile turned brittle. More scotch. At 9:45, after the Weatherbys left, I stood at the sink, scrubbing crystal. Vanessa counted cash tips she'd collected for the help at her last charity function money that would never reach any actual help. Eleanor, before you go, the baseboards in the master suite need attention. Set your timer for 6 tomorrow. My hands were raw, back screaming. The timer showed 14 hours, 53 minutes. Actually, Daniel said from the doorway, Mom's done enough today. Vanessa turned, eyebrow raised. Excuse me. It's almost 10. She's been working since 7. This was our agreement. The agreement was part-time housekeeping, not slavery. The word hung in the air like a slap. Vanessa's face went white, then red. How dare you? Go home, Mum, Daniel said quietly. Rest. I dried my hands slowly, removed the apron, set down the timer. It read 14 hours, 57 minutes. Thank you for dinner. Vanessa, I said. The Weatherbys seemed to enjoy themselves. She glared at me. Then Daniel. This conversation isn't over. I walked to the service entrance, Daniel following. Mum, I'm sorry. This isn't what I intended. What did you intend? Daniel. He couldn't answer. Outside. The night air felt clean after the chemical fog of cleaning products. I pulled out my phone, found Grant Whitaker's last email. Confirming Thursday at 10 A. I have everything you'll need to see. In the main house, I heard Vanessa's voice rising. Daniel's getting quieter. By morning, she'd have him apologizing, convinced again that this arrangement was best for everyone. But Thursday was only 2 days away. I looked at my raw hands, the burns from the cleaning chemicals, the ache in my knees. Vanessa wanted me to know my place, to be grateful. She had no idea what 40 years in accounting had taught me. Every transaction leaves a trail. Every contract has terms. And every debt eventually comes due. The timer on the kitchen counter would keep running tomorrow, tracking my humiliation in precise digital numbers. But somewhere in a law firm's database, another clock was ticking toward Thursday at 10 A.m., when Grant Whitaker would show me exactly how to stop theirs. Thursday morning came grey and cold. I told Vanessa I had a doctor's appointment. She made me clock out, of course, and drove downtown to Grant Whitaker's office. It sat above a coffee shop, intentionally nondescript, the kind of place where financial secrets went to be dissected. Grant Whitaker looked exactly like his website photo, mid-40s, prematurely silver hair, eyes that missed nothing. His handshake was firm, brief. Mrs. Hart. Coffee. Please. While he poured, I spread my documents across his conference table. The original Helix contract, the merger papers, the photos from Marcus Cole's desk. Grant studied each page with the intensity of a surgeon. 20 minutes passed in silence, except for the occasional tap of his pen. Finally, he leaned back. "This is a nuclear weapon." "Explain." He pulled up a screen on his laptop, showing Cole Urban Group's corporate structure. "They've pledged Helix Meridian assets as collateral for a $12 million credit facility. But your protection clause explicitly prohibits using your shares or derivative assets as security without written consent." "Which I haven't given." "Correct. The moment you execute your buyback right and notify the lenders, it triggers what we call a waterfall event. The bank must immediately re-evaluate their collateral position. Without Helix assets, they're undersecured by roughly 30%. He pulled up another document. "But here's where it gets interesting. I pulled their other loan documents, thank you, public records. They all have cross-default provisions. If they breach one loan covenant, every lender can call their notes." My coffee had gone cold. "How much are we talking about?" "Total exposure, $43 million across 6 facilities." The number hung between us like a guillotine blade. "Can they cure the default?" I asked. "Not quickly. They'd need to substitute collateral or pay down the principal by 30%, based on their latest filings. They don't have $8 million in liquid assets. The Aurora Row project has consumed everything." I thought of Vanessa's diamonds, Daniel's Italian shirts, the marble kitchen where I'd scrubbed floors on my knees. "What do I need to do?" Grant opened a folder, producing typed documents. "Execute your buyback right formally. I've prepared the notice. It cites your original agreement, the merger continuation clause, and demands immediate return of share certificates. Once notarized, we send it simultaneously to Cole Urban Group, Midwest Capital Trust, and file it with the state." "When would it take effect?" "The moment it's delivered. Electronic filing means within minutes." I picked up the pen, then set it down. "I need to be sure about something. This won't just hurt Marcus and Vanessa." Grant's expression softened slightly. "Your son works for Cole Urban Group, Senior Project Manager, the Aurora Row development." "Then I won't lie to you. If Cole Urban can't cure the default, they'll likely file bankruptcy. The Aurora Row project would stop. Your son would lose his job." "But not his house," I thought. Daniel and Vanessa's home was titled separately, bought before he joined Cole Urban. They'd lose their luxury, not their shelter. "Mrs. Hart," Grant continued. "I looked into the timeline here. You gave Helix $75,000 when no one else would help them. That money saved 40 jobs, kept the company alive. What Cole Urban Group did using assets built on your sacrifice as gambling chips, that's not just wrong. It's possibly fraudulent, since they never disclosed your protection clause to their lenders." Lila called while I was reviewing the documents. "Eleanor, you need to see what I found." "Tell me." "Cole Urban Group is in trouble. 3 missed payments to subcontractors, 2 lawsuits pending for non-payment. They're juggling credit lines to stay afloat. And Eleanor, there's a sealed complaint from a former controller alleging Marcus Cole has been hiding debt through subsidiary shell games." I looked at Grant. "Can you add financial fraud examination to your services?" "Already thinking about it. This could trigger regulatory investigation beyond the civil matters." We spent 2 more hours refining the strategy. Grant would have a notary and process server ready whenever I gave the word. He'd also prepare SEC whistleblower documentation if we uncovered evidence of securities fraud. "One more thing," Grant said as I prepared to leave. "The optimal timing would be during a public event. Multiple witnesses. Harder for them to claim they didn't receive notice or try to bury it legally. Vanessa's hosting a fundraiser next week, the Aurora Row Investor Showcase at the Cole Design Pavilion." Grant smiled for the first time. "Perfect. I can have a notary positioned as catering staff. Very public. Very documented." I drove home slowly, thinking. By the time I reached the service entrance, I had internalized that humiliation. Now my phone showed 3 missed calls from Vanessa. She met me at the door, timer in hand. "Your appointment ran long." "Traffic." "Well, you'll need to make up the hours. The bathroom grout needs re-scrubbing. The first attempt was substandard." The first attempt that had left my hands bleeding. Of course, Vanessa. As I knelt on the bathroom floor with the toothbrush and bleach, I heard her on the phone with party planners. "Yes. The investor showcase. We're expecting 200. The mayor, city council, major donors. This needs to be perfect." Perfect indeed. That evening, Daniel found me organizing the pantry. Vanessa wanted everything alphabetized. "Mum, how was your appointment? Educational?" He shifted uncomfortably. "Look, about the other night. Vanessa was upset, but she means well. This arrangement, it's helping everyone." "Is it?" I turned to face him. "Daniel? Do you know what your grandfather would say if he saw me scrubbing floors in your house?" His face flushed. "That's not fair. He worked 3 jobs so I could go to night school. Died thinking his sacrifice meant something." "It did. You're being dramatic. Your wife made me eat lunch next to a litter box today." Silence. "It's temporary," he whispered. "Everything is," I said, returning to the alphabetizing. He left without another word. That night, I called Grant. "Next Thursday, the investor showcase. I'll have everything ready. Mrs. Hart, are you certain?" I looked at my raw hands, thought about the timer, the service entrance, the litter box lunches. "Mr. Whitaker. They had their chance to treat me with dignity. They chose differently." "Then we proceed. Thursday, approximately 8 p. Make it 8:30. That's when Vanessa plans to toast the investors." After we hung up, I sat in the dark guest house, holding the old Helix contract. Somewhere in those pages was the memory of desperate times, of choosing sacrifice over surrender. Vanessa thought she'd broken me, turned me into something useful and small. Thursday would teach her that some things, once broken, become sharp enough to cut. The Cole Design Pavilion glowed against Thursday's darkening sky, its glass walls revealing the orchestrated perfection within. Ice sculptures spelled Aurora Row, while champagne pyramids caught the light. Vanessa had outdone herself, which meant I'd been working since 5 to help her do it. Eleanor. She materialized in a crimson gown that cost more than most annual salaries. The canapé trays need refreshing. And smile, for God's sake. You're representing our household. Our household, where I wore a stark uniform while scrubbing crystal 2 hours ago. The investors began arriving at 7. Mayor Hutchinson, 3 city councillors, representatives from 4 major banks. Marcus Cole worked the room like a conductor, each handshake perfectly timed. Daniel followed in his wake, uncomfortable in his new Italian suit, clutching Aurora Row prospectuses. I moved through the crowd with practiced invisibility, refilling drinks, collecting plates. The uniform made me furniture necessary but unnoticed. At 7:45, I slipped to the service corridor and texted Grant, "In position." His reply was immediate. "Notary stationed at northwest entrance. Documents ready. Await your signal." Through the kitchen, pass-through, I watched Vanessa gather the crowd. The Aurora Row model, a miniature glass tower, sat spotlit on the main stage. Above it, screens showed profit projections that assumed every unit would sell at premium prices. "Before our toast," Vanessa announced, "I want to acknowledge someone special. Daniel. Where's your mother?" My blood froze. Daniel looked puzzled. "She's working tonight." "Exactly." Vanessa's smile was predatory. "Eleanor Hart, come here, please." 200 faces turned as I emerged from the service corridor. The uniform suddenly felt like a target. "Everyone, this is Daniel's mother." Vanessa continued. "She's been helping our household while we focus on Aurora Row. Isn't that wonderful? Such family dedication." Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Several investors looked uncomfortable. Mrs. Weatherby whispered to her husband. "In fact," Vanessa raised her champagne. "Eleanor exemplifies what Aurora Row represents, everyone contributing according to their abilities. Some of us create vision. Others, well, they support that vision in simpler ways." The humiliation was deliberate, surgical. She wanted me broken publicly. My story spread through country clubs and boardrooms. The mother who cleaned toilets while her son built towers. "Vanessa," Daniel started, his face flushed. "This isn't—" "Let's toast," Marcus Cole interrupted, clearly wanting to move past the awkward moment. "To Aurora Row and profitable futures." Glasses rose. That's when I stepped forward. "Before we toast," I said, my voice carrying across the pavilion, "I have something to contribute." Vanessa's smile flickered. "Eleanor, this isn't the time." "Oh, but it is." I reached into my apron pocket, the uniform she'd chosen for me, and pulled out the folded documents. "You're right. Vanessa, everyone should contribute according to their abilities." I nodded toward the northwest entrance. Grant Whitaker entered, followed by a woman in professional attire, the notary, no longer in catering disguise. Grant carried a leather portfolio. "What is this?" Marcus Cole's voice cut through the murmur. "My contribution." I unfolded the papers slowly. Theatrically, Vanessa had taught me the value of performance. 30 years ago, I saved Helix Meridian Builders from bankruptcy with my entire life savings. In return, I received preferred shares with a specific protection clause. The room had gone silent. When Cole Urban Group acquired Helix, that clause transferred. It states that any attempt to use my shares or derivative assets as collateral without my written consent triggers my right to immediate buyback at market value. Marcus Cole's face was changing color. "That's impossible. We reviewed all encumbrances. Subsection 12, Appendix B of the merger agreement. Your lawyers apparently missed it." I turned to the notary. "I'm now executing that right." The notary stepped forward with her seal. "I'll need to verify your identity and witness your signature." "This is ridiculous." Vanessa snatched at the papers. Grant smoothly intercepted her. "Mrs. Hart has every legal right to execute this clause," he said calmly. "I've already notified Midwest Capital Trust electronically. They're reviewing their collateral position now." Marcus Cole's phone buzzed, then another, then a cascade of notifications. "Furthermore," Grant continued, pulling additional documents from his portfolio. We've discovered that Cole Urban Group never disclosed this protection clause to their lenders. That's material misrepresentation, possibly securities fraud. You can't do this, Daniel said, his voice hollow. Mom, you'll destroy everything. No. Daniel, I'm refusing to let my sacrifice be used as gambling chips. I signed the document with the notary's pen, a good pen, heavy and certain. The notary stamped her seal with a decisive thump. Grant pulled out his phone. Hit send. Filed with the state, effective immediately. Marcus Cole was shouting into his phone now. Around the room, other phones were lighting up board members, investors, all getting alerts from their financial networks. The screens above the Aurora Row model flickered, then displayed an error message, funding status under review. You vindictive bitch, Vanessa hissed, her composure finally cracking. You've ruined us. No, I said, removing the apron slowly, folding it with the same precision I'd used on their laundered clothes. You ruined yourselves the moment you decided I was worth less than the floors I scrubbed. The mayor was already heading for the exit. Other investors followed, a cascade of abandoned champagne flutes and nervous excuses. Daniel grabbed my arm. Mum, please. There has to be another way. There was. I pulled free gently. It started with treating me like your mother instead of your maid. Grant stepped between us. Mr. Hart, I'd advise you to consult personal counsel. The corporate veil may not protect individual assets if fraud charges are filed. Vanessa was screaming at Marcus now, something about hidden debts and shell games. The perfect investor showcase was dissolving into chaos security trying to maintain order. Reporters who'd come for a puff piece sensing real news. I walked toward the exit through the main entrance, not the service corridor. Behind me, I heard the Aurora Row model topple, glass shattering across marble. At the door, I turned back. Daniel stood alone in the center of the chaos, looking lost. For a moment, I saw my 8-year-old son again, confused and hurt. But that boy had chosen to watch his mother scrub floors rather than stand up to his wife. That boy had timed my humiliation and called it temporary. The guest house key is on the kitchen counter. I called to him. The lease you made me sign was never legal anyway. Turns out you can't charge rent to someone who owns 30% of the underlying asset. Grant followed me out. Lila waiting by his car with a small suitcase. She'd cleared my things from the guest house that afternoon, while everyone prepared for the party. Where to? Grant asked. The Marriott downtown. I reserved a suite. I looked back at the pavilion, now erupting with shouting and accusations. Send my son the final accounting once the dust settles. Whatever the shares are worth after bankruptcy, that's his inheritance. And if he contests, I thought of the timer, the chemical burns, the litter box lunches. Then remind him that I have 14 hours and 57 minutes of detailed documentation about my treatment in his household. I doubt the professional engineering board would find it reflects well on his character. We drove away. As the first police car arrived, someone had apparently thrown champagne at someone else. The Marriott suite was quiet, clean, mine. No timer, no service entrance, no apron. Just the satisfaction of knowing that somewhere across town, Vanessa was learning what I'd always known, paper beats diamonds, every time. The pen felt heavier than it should have. This Mont Blanc that Grant had produced from his portfolio, a proper signing instrument for a document that would detonate $43 million in leveraged debt. State your name for the record, the notary said. her voice cutting through the pavilion's chaos. "Eleanor Marie Hart. And you're signing this notice of exercise and revocation of pledge consent of your own free will." I looked at Vanessa, mascara running down her cheeks as she screamed into her phone. At Marcus Cole, face purple with rage as he barked at lawyers. At my son, frozen like a statue in his Italian suit. Completely of my own free will. The pen moved across paper Eleanor Marie Hart, each letter deliberate. Final. The notary's seal came down with mechanical precision. Thunk. Timestamp 8:47 p.m. The notary announced. Document executed. Grant's fingers flew across his phone. Sending now to Midwest Capital Trust, First National, Cornerstone Financial, and Meridian Savings. Also filing with the Secretary of State's UCC division. The first domino fell within seconds. Marcus Cole's phone erupted with a call that made him go white. "What do you mean, frozen?" he shouted. "The presentation is happening right now." More phones began ringing. Board members, investors, all receiving simultaneous alerts from their risk management departments. The beautifully orchestrated investor showcase was becoming a financial crime scene. "Additionally," Grant announced, loud enough for the remaining crowd to hear, "we're filing notice with the SEC regarding potential securities fraud. Cole Urban Group failed to disclose material encumbrances when securing credit facilities. You planned this." Vanessa lunged toward me, but her heel caught on her gown. She stumbled, champagne splashing across her crimson dress. "You vindictive." "Careful," Grant warned. "Assault charges would complicate your existing legal problems." The mayor was already at the exit, his aide whispering urgently about distancing from the situation. City councillors followed, their political survival instincts kicking in. Within minutes, half the room had emptied. Daniel finally moved, walking toward me like a man in a dream. "Mum, you don't understand what you've done. The Aurora Row project employs hundreds of people." "People who will be paid," I said. "The bankruptcy trustee will ensure that, unlike what would have happened when your father-in-law's house of cards collapsed naturally in another month." "Another month?" Lila stepped forward from where she'd been documenting everything on her phone. "Your wife's father has been juggling debt for 2 years. Daniel. Robbing Peter to pay Paul. The Aurora Row project was his last desperate gamble." She showed him her phone screenshots of lawsuits, mechanics' liens, bounced checks to suppliers. But Vanessa said. Daniel stopped, the truth finally penetrating his fog. "Vanessa knew exactly how desperate things were," I said. "Why do you think she suddenly needed free labor every penny counted when you're dancing on the edge of bankruptcy?" The main screen above the Aurora Row model, the one that had shown gleaming profit projections, now displayed an emergency message from Cole Urban Group's automated system, account access, suspended pending verification. No, no, no. Marcus Cole was physically shaking his banker contact from Midwest Capital. "You can't call the entire note. We have 90 days to cure any default." The banker, a thin man named Harrison, whom I recognized from the Weatherby's party, stepped back with distaste. "Not for fraudulent collateralization. Marcus, check Section 19 of your agreement. Immediate acceleration." That's when Vanessa turned on her father. "You told me the loans were secured. You said the Helix acquisition was clean." "It was clean," Marcus roared back. "How was I supposed to know about some ancient side agreement?" "Because it's your job to know." She threw her champagne glass against the wall. The shatter echoed through the pavilion. My husband's mother owns 30% of our collateral, and you didn't know. Grant leaned toward me. We should go. This is about to get uglier. But I wasn't finished. I walked to the microphone Vanessa had used for her humiliating toast. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, my voice filling the pavilion. I apologize for disrupting tonight's event, but I believe investors deserve transparency. The remaining crowd turned to me, reporters, junior city officials, a few brave investors who sensed a story worth staying for. 30 years ago, I saved Helix Meridian Builders with my life savings. Every penny my late husband left me. I did it because 40 families depended on those jobs. I looked directly at Daniel. I did it because that's what you do for people who matter. I pulled out my phone, showed them the timer app still displaying the last count. 14 hours, 57 minutes. This is how long I worked yesterday, being treated as a servant in my own son's home. Eating lunch next to a litter box because I wasn't allowed in the dining room I helped them buy. Cameras were recording now, phones, professional equipment from the business reporter who'd come for a puff piece. Cole Urban Group built their empire on borrowed money, using assets they had no right to pledge. That ends tonight. I set the timer on the podium still running, still counting nothing, and walked away from the microphone. Daniel caught up to me at the door. His face was streaked with tears. Mom, please. I know I failed you, but don't do this. It's already done. I'll leave her. I'll make this right. With what? I asked gently. Daniel, you own nothing. The house is mortgaged to the hilt. Your car is leased. Even your suits belong to credit cards that are about to be frozen. Behind him, I could see Vanessa slapping her father, screaming about trust funds and promises. Security was moving in. I can rebuild, Daniel said desperately. I'm still an engineer. Yes, I agreed. You are, and maybe, starting over? You'll remember what that means. Building things that matter, working with your hands, earning instead of inheriting. Grant touched my shoulder. Mrs. Hart, we need to go. The authorities will want statements, but not in this chaos. I looked at my son one last time. The guest house is yours for 30 days, legal tenant rights. After that, it goes on the market with the rest of the coal assets. Mom, 30 days. Daniel, figure out who you want to be, because the man who watched his mother scrub floors for his wife's amusement, that man is no son of mine. I walked out of the coal design pavilion, my footsteps echoing on the marble I'd polished that morning. Behind me, the empire built on other people's money and sacrifice began its collapse, one phone call, one frozen account, one cancelled contract at a time. The pen that signed the documents sat heavy in my pocket. I'd keep it a reminder that sometimes the smallest signature can topple the tallest towers, especially when they're built on foundations of contempt. The coal design pavilion erupted like a disturbed anthill. Marcus Cole's voice boomed over the chaos. Everyone calm down. This is a misunderstanding that our legal team will resolve, but the legal team was already fleeing. I watched Brennan and Associates' senior partner whisper urgently to his colleagues before they slipped out the service entrance, the same one I'd been forced to use for weeks. Marcus, a heavy-set man in a Midwest Capital Trust blazer, pushed through the crowd. We're calling the note. All 12 million. You have 24 hours. 24 hours. Marcus grabbed the banker's lapels. That's impossible. Security intervened, pulling them apart. Vanessa stood frozen, her phone buzzing incessantly. Each ring brought worse news. I could see it in her face as the blood drained from her carefully contoured cheeks. The Aurora Row contractor just pulled out. Someone shouted. They're citing breach of funding guarantees. The pristine model of Aurora Row sat abandoned on its platform. Tiny lights, still twinkling in empty windows, a miniature ghost town worth $43 million of nothing. Daniel approached me again, but differently this time. The tears were gone, replaced by something harder. You want me to beg? He asked. No. Then what? What do you want from me? Mum? I looked at him, really looked. When had my gentle boy become this stranger who could watch his mother degraded without flinching? I wanted you to stop her. I said simply, just once, when she made me eat by the litter box, when she timed my bathroom breaks, when she paraded me in front of her friends like a broken thing, just once. I wanted my son to say, enough. His jaw worked silently. Grant stepped forward with another document. Mr. Hart, there's one more matter. This is a notice of claim for unjust enrichment. Your household benefited from approximately 300 hours of uncompensated labor. You're suing me for wages. Daniel's voice cracked. At market rate for household services, plus penalties for labor law violations. Grant smiled thinly. Around $30,000, though that's negotiable if you cooperate with the fraud investigation. Across the room, Vanessa had cornered her father. Their argument echoed off the glass walls. You promised me security, she shrieked. You said marrying Daniel would bring stability. I didn't know his mother was a fucking viper, Marcus roared back. She scrubbed our toilets. She was nothing. That's when Mrs. Weatherby, who hadn't left with her husband, spoke up. She was never nothing. I remembered her tonight, Eleanor Hart, the woman who saved Helix. My husband wrote about her in his banking column years ago. The secretary who became a kingmaker. Vanessa whirled on her. You knew. I suspected when I saw her serving drinks in that ridiculous uniform. I tried to warn you at dinner last week, never humiliate someone who knows where bodies are buried. Mrs. Weatherby adjusted her pearls. But you were too busy counting my husband's commission potential to listen. More phones rang. The State Attorney General's office, the Employment Commission, the local news editor who'd received an anonymous tip about modern slavery in Marigold Ridge's elite. Daniel grabbed my arm. Make it stop. Please. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. Like the misunderstanding where you drew up a lease charging me rent for the guest house, or the misunderstanding where your wife had employment contracts drafted for my household services. Contracts you never intended to honor. I pulled out my phone, showed him the photos I'd taken. Every degrading schedule, every humiliating task, every document that proved this wasn't casual cruelty, but systematic exploitation. She had a business plan. Daniel, reduce household overhead by converting family obligation to unpaid labor. It's right there in her iPad, which she left unlocked on the kitchen counter. He stared at the screen, face crumbling as he recognized Vanessa's distinctive planning spreadsheets, the same ones she used for coal urban projects. I didn't know it went that deep. Yes, you did. You just chose not to see it. Grant's phone buzzed. He checked it, smiled. The first lender just filed emergency injunctions. They're freezing all coal urban group assets, including personal accounts tied to corporate guarantees. As if on cue, Vanessa's phone lit up with a fraud alert. My cards. They're all declining. She ran to the pavilion's ATM, a golden monstrosity she'd insisted on installing for convenience. Her card was rejected. Then another. Then another. This can't be happening. She pounded on the machine. But it was happening. All around the room, the infrastructure of wealth was failing. The catering staff, sensing non-payment, began packing up the champagne. The string quartet stopped mid-song and demanded their check before continuing. Even the lights flickered as someone from the utility company arrived to discuss outstanding corporate accounts. Daniel stood in the center of it all, looking lost. His phone rang, Vanessa screaming for him to fix this. He didn't answer. You could have prevented all of this, I told him. A single moment of courage. Mum, let me help with the dishes. That's all it would have taken. I was trying to keep the peace. You were a coward. The words hung between us, sharp and final. And now you get to live with what cowardice costs. Security began herding people out. The investor showcase was over, but the real show was just beginning. Lawyers, reporters, investigators all descending on what would become Marigold Ridge's financial scandal of the decade. I walked to where Vanessa stood crying over her dead credit cards. The apron's on the kitchen counter, I told her. The timer still works. You might need both soon. She looked up, mascara streaked and feral. I'll destroy you for this? With what? I asked. Your frozen accounts, your repossessed Mercedes, the jewelry that's collateral for loans you didn't know Marcus took. Grant touched my elbow. Time to go. Mrs. Hart. Let the lawyers handle the rest. As we walked toward the exit, the main exit, not the service entrance, Daniel called out one last time. Mum, where will you go? I stopped, considered. Somewhere I'm not charged rent for existing. Somewhere my labor has value. Somewhere my signature matters. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you deserve. The glass doors closed between us with a soft pneumatic hiss. Through them, I could see my son standing alone while his world collapsed around him. His wife raging at her father. The perfect life they'd built on my humiliation crumbling like wet sand. The January air was cold and clean. Grant's Lincoln waited at the curb. Lila already inside with my salvaged belongings. Any regrets? Grant asked as we pulled away. I thought of Daniel at 8, promising to take care of me someday. Daniel at 22, proud of his engineering degree. Daniel at 34, watching his mother scrub floors while his wife timed her degradation. No, I said. No regrets at all. Behind us, red and blue lights converged on the Cole Design Pavilion as the first official investigations began. The timer was finally stopped. The glass doors of the Cole Design Pavilion sealed shut behind me with a mechanical finality that matched the documents I'd just signed. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the chaos continued to unfold like a silent movie. Marcus Cole gesticulating wildly at phones that no longer connected to salvation. Investors streaming toward exits. My son standing motionless in the center of it all. Grant's Lincoln pulled smoothly into traffic. The state attorney's office wants to meet Monday at 9, he said, checking his phone. They're particularly interested in the employment violations. I'll be there? Lila reached over from the back seat, squeezing my shoulder. You did what you had to do. Eleanor. Did I through the rear window? I watched the pavilion shrink into the distance, its lights still blazing like a beacon of false promises. Somewhere in there, the Aurora Row model lay shattered on Italian marble, $43 million of architectural dreams reduced to broken glass. My phone buzzed. Daniel? I didn't answer. It buzzed again. This time, a text. The house is being seized tomorrow. Vanessa's leaving tonight. I typed back. The guest house remains yours for 30 days. Use them wisely. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, I'm sorry. 2 words. After everything, just 2 words. Grant pulled into the Marriott's circular drive. Mrs. Hart, you should know the Helix shares, even in bankruptcy proceedings, are worth approximately $2.3 million. You'll recover your initial investment many times over. $2.3 million. More money than I'd ever dreamed of, built on the foundation of $75,000 I'd scrapped together decades ago. There's something else, Grant continued, handing me a folder. 3 former coal employees reached out through my office. They want to hire you as a consultant for a new development firm. Apparently, your reputation for ethical business practices preceded tonight's events. I opened the folder. A real offer. Real respect. Real value. The Marriott suite was everything the guest house hadn't been: spacious, warm, mine. I stood at the window, looking out over marigold ridges glittering downtown. Somewhere out there, Vanessa was probably packing her diamonds, not knowing they'd already been claimed by creditors. Marcus was calling lawyers who wouldn't call back. And Daniel was alone in a house he couldn't afford, married to a woman who'd already fled, holding the wreckage of a life built on borrowed everything. My phone rang. Unknown number. Mrs. Hart. This is James Harrison from Midwest Capital. I wanted to apologize. 4. I attended several dinners at your son's home. I saw how they treated you. I should have said something. Yes, I agreed. You should have. The bank is prepared to offer you a position on our advisory board. Your actions tonight demonstrated a level of financial acumen we value. I'll consider it. After he hung up, I sat on the plush sofa, in my suite, paid for with my money. The apron Vanessa had forced on me lay folded in Grant's briefcase, evidence for the labor investigation. The timer sat beside it, stopped forever at 14 hours, 57 minutes. By morning, the news had broken. Coal Urban Group collapse. Revenge of the Maid, read the business section headline. The article detailed everything: the forced servitude, the hidden protection clause, the systematic fraud. Someone had leaked photos from the pavilion, Vanessa screaming at her father, Daniel standing shocked and alone, and me at the microphone, calm and composed, holding the timer that had tracked my humiliation. My phone had 67 messages, former colleagues, distant relatives, reporters, all wanting to know how it felt to topple an empire with a signature. How did it feel? I thought about Daniel's call that came at 6 voice broken. She's gone. Took what she could and left. Mom, I don't know what to do. Start over, I'd told him. Without lies, without shortcuts, without treating people as disposable. Will you help me? No, but I won't stop you either. That was 3 hours ago. Now, standing in my suite, preparing for meetings with lawyers and job offers and a future I'd reclaimed with my own hands. I knew exactly how it felt. It felt like justice. The door to the suite clicked shut behind me as I headed to my first meeting with the new development firm. In my briefcase, the original Helix contract. proof that patience and paperwork could defeat diamonds and cruelty. As the elevator descended, I thought I saw Daniel's car in the parking lot. Maybe he was here to beg, maybe to rage, maybe to finally understand. It didn't matter anymore. The elevator doors opened to a lobby full of possibility, and I walked through them without looking back. Behind me, the timer remained stopped, its digital display dark, its purpose fulfilled. Some might say I destroyed my family for revenge, but families aren't destroyed by truth. They're destroyed by the lies they tell themselves. I simply stopped being part of the lie. The signature that saved Helix 30 years ago had finally collected its due. Not in money, though that came too, but in something worth more, the proof that dignity, once surrendered, can be reclaimed with interest. The glass doors of the Marriott opened automatically as I approached. No service entrance, no apron required. Just Eleanor Hart, walking into a morning where her signature meant what it always should have meant: power. The legal document that ended their fortune lay filed with the state, its notary seal as final as the sound of doors closing on the past. Some sounds, once made, cannot be taken back. That click of the seal on paper was one of them, just like the tack of glass doors sealing shut on what we used to call family. Thank you so much for listening to Eleanor's story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Please share in the comments below so we can connect with fellow listeners around the world. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts about Eleanor's decision. Was her revenge justified? Or did she go too far? Your perspectives make these stories richer for everyone.